Excel CEO, Excel 2013, Chapter 5, Printing. So what are we going to learn about in this chapter today? What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the different components of the print and print preview dialog boxes. We're going to learn how to print a multiple page report. We're going to start using page breaks and margins using the different print dialog boxes. You're going to pick the appropriate customized headers and footers in a report using a whole bunch of different available features. You're going to choose some non-contiguous cells to create a print range of a report. You're going to work with the functionality to hide rows and columns within the printed report. You're going to work with the grouping and page to fit functionality. And finally, you're going to learn how to save an Excel file to a PDF document. So let's go ahead and get started on here. Introduction, and you can quote me on this. The paperless office will never exist. At least in my lifetime, it won't. You can quote me on that one. Excel gives you a whole bunch of tools to create, organize, manipulate, slice, and dice your data, but many people want to see a printed report or presentation. This is always going to be necessary to share information with others, and printing a report, a graph, a table, and all of that is essential in working in an office environment, and more particularly in an accounting environment. Accountants love to touch paper. They love to have the paper and read off of it. When considering your Excel reports, it's best to begin with the end in mind. By that, I mean think about how you want your report to look. How far from the edges, the top, the bottom, the left, the right do you want the report? Do you want it on one page or multiple pages? Do you want it landscape or portrait, large font, small font, black, white, color? How do you want it? If you can picture in your mind how you want the report to look, you're already halfway there. So let's start off by designing a simple one-page report. So let's go ahead and open Excel. We're going to navigate to Excel Chapter 5. And let's open the income statement report. This file is very similar to the financial statement that you created in Chapter 1. Let's first talk about print preview. In Excel 2013, there's a whole bunch of ways to display the various print features. We're going to explore these methods in the next few exercises. So to preview how the report will look when it's printed, you first need to set the print range. So let's go ahead and select the whole area of this report, starting off here at cell A1 through E1. I'm going to take my cursor and just kind of go down there and release. Next, now that I've got the entire range of the report selected, I'm going to click over here on the page layout tab, click on the print area, and click set print area. The print area is now set, so now you can preview the report by clicking on the print preview icon. Even if you don't set the print area, Excel 2013 usually does a good job of figuring out what your print area should be, unless there's a whole lot of blank rows and or columns, so most of the time you don't even need to set the print range. I do a lot of non-contiguous ranges, so I use the set print range functionality quite a bit. On my computer, I have the set print range icon as one of the icons on my quick access toolbar. Another icon we placed in the quick access toolbar in Chapter 3 is the print preview icon. Print preview allows you to look at a graphic of the report as it will print. So let's click on the print preview icon over here in the quick access toolbar. Since we haven't set any of the margins or centered the report yet, the document appears at the top of the page and a little bit over to the left. There are a number of settings in the print preview mode. The print button right over here prints the document. The printer status button right over here allows the user to choose a different printer, add a printer, and print file, meaning to send the document to another file like a PDF file. The printer properties link, which is right over here, opens the Printer Properties dialog box for the selected printer, and it gives you several options to apply the printed document. Under the Settings section, which is right over here, are several icons that allow the user to change various settings, such as the print area, selections, page orientation, page size, margins, and scaling. The Page Setup link, which is right down here below the Settings section, is a link to the Page Setup dialog box that many people used to use in previous versions of Excel. In the lower right-hand corner of the Print Preview dialog box are these two little icons right over there. They are the Show Margins, right, that's the first one, and Zoom to Page. You use the Show Margins button to see the lines in Print Preview where the margins are set. The Zoom to Page button allows you to see a larger and smaller view of the page as it's going to print out. In the lower section of the Print Preview mode, which is right over here, are the navigation buttons that allow you to scroll to the previous page or next page in multiple page reports. To close out of Print Preview mode, just click on the back button arrow in the extreme upper left-hand corner, which is this button right over here. In the past, I used to use the Page Setup dialog box to perform all of my printing functions, so there are some functionalities in the Page Setup dialog box that are necessary to use, so let's explore that dialog box. So at this point, I'm going to take my cursor and click over here on the Page Setup link, and we get the Page Setup dialog box. Now you need to make sure that the Page tab in the Page Setup dialog box is selected. On the Page tab, you can do things like change the orientation of the page, make it portrait or landscape, reduce it, enlarge it, make it fit with a specified number of pages, change the paper size, a whole bunch of stuff. For now, we're going to accept the default values, which are portrait over here, 100% of normal size, and we're going to be using an 8.5 by 11 paper size. So let's go ahead and click on the Margins tab over here. In this tab, you can set the left, right, top, bottom, header, and footer margins. You can also center the report horizontally or vertically by checking these checkboxes over here. So let's go ahead and center it horizontally and vertically and click OK and see what it does to the report. You should now see a full page preview of how your report's going to appear before it's printed, centered horizontally and vertically. Let's click this Zoom to Page icon and see what that does. As you can see, the document increases in size. Basically, that's what it means when it says it zooms in. And you click the Zoom to Page icon again to return the print preview to its full size. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get out of print preview mode to go back to the worksheet, and we're going to save this file as over here in chapter 5 as my income statement. We're going to save it, and we'll save it. Let's talk a little bit about multiple page reports. Next, we're going to open another report for some more complex printing exercises. In this example, you're going to set up a report to print on multiple pages. So let's go ahead and click the open icon over there. We'll go to our computer, go to chapter 5, which is our most recent one, and we're going to click on the top 10 May 2013 or May 13 and click open. And we'll save that file as, go over here to chapter 5, and we'll save it as my top 10 May 13 report. Now this file is similar to the top 10 file that you completed in chapter 1. We're going to work with this file to prepare the printed report. So before we do anything right now, we're going to click on the print preview, but without setting the print range or anything. By default, Excel sets up your report in a portrait format. In our report, we have 11 columns of data consisting of 1 column of dates and 10 columns of people, but it doesn't look like it all fits in the portrait mode, since there's only 8 fields of data that appear on the first page of the report. If you click on the next page button a few times, in fact, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on that, we'll click on it again, click on it over there, you'll see that the column headings don't repeat in the different pages, and there's partial data on some of the pages. So one option to make it fit more appropriately is to make the report appear in a landscape orientation. So to do that, we're going to click over here on this button over here to the left. I'm going to change it from portrait orientation to landscape orientation. And let's click the navigation buttons here to go over to page 1 over there. It looks a little bit better now that it's on landscape, but it still needs some work. Now, if you click let's go ahead and click the navigation buttons a few times here. It looks like we've got 2 of 8, or 1 and 2 of 8 pages in the report there. So when you click through it, you're going to see that the report is now 8 pages long. We only really want it to be 3 pages long, 1 page for each month. And that last person, what's that last person's name? Evan something. Evan Thurston, yeah. Evan Thurston appears on a page all by himself. So we need to adjust the margins of the report. All right, so let's go all the way back to the first page of the report and choose the margins icon right over there. We're going to choose custom margins over there. The report looks better now, but it still needs some work. If you click the next button over here a few times, you're going to see that the report is now 6 pages long. We want it to be 3 pages long, 1 page for each month. With the last person, Evan Thurston, is on 1 page by himself. To make Evan Thurston fit on the same page as the other people, we need to adjust the margins of the report. So let's go over here and click on the margins button over there, and I'm going to choose custom margins. And the page setup dialog box appears. So on the margins, we're going to reduce the left and right margins down to 0.25. So I'm going to take that all the way down and bring it up 1. Take that all the way down and up 1. The top and bottom margins, we're going to adjust to 0.5. So I'll use the spinner buttons to do that right over there. We're going to check the horizontally and vertically boxes and click OK. Now the report is looking a little bit better, but we still have some issues. So the report is now down to 3 pages, but there's some data from April. You see right down over here, the data that's from April, that's still on the first page. We want to display only 1 month on each page. One option is to play around with the top and bottom margins until the months fit all on 1 page, but in this example, we're going to use a page break. So I'm going to click on the back arrow over here and come up to the page layout tab. And then let's scroll down in our report to row number 36. I'm going to click right over there on cell A36. This is where the dates change from March to April. And on the page layout tab in the page group, I'm going to click on breaks over here, and I'm going to choose insert page break. And actually, you see that the little dotted line that separated the where the actual page break was in print preview mode, that goes away, and you see there's a little bit more of a bolded line on top of row 36, and that was the page break. Let's go down, scroll down a little bit. Let's do the same thing with May. So, and you see that little dotted line right over there. That's where the page break is currently, with without forcing a page break. But here we're going to force a page break, so we'll click over here on breaks, insert page break. That little dotted line goes above, and you see the page break line appears right above row 69. Now let's look at it in print preview mode. And as you scroll through the print preview mode, that you see that each page appears on its own. But as you're scrolling through the report in this print preview mode, notice how the titles don't repeat on the second and third pages. So now you're going to format the report where those titles repeat on every page. In Excel 2013, you set the titles for each page in the page layout tab again. So let's click the back arrow over here to exit out of print preview mode. And in the Page Layout tab, click on the Print Titles icon. This opens the Page Setup dialog box with the Sheet tab selected. And we're going to click inside the rows to repeat at the top right over there. Then with your cursor, I want you to move up to row 1, click on row 1 just like that, and then click OK. Now you can go back into print preview mode, look at the report. You see the dates over here on the titles over here on the top. We'll click on the next page and you'll see that the date and all the titles are repeating on page 2. Click the next page, and on 3, everything is repeating on page 3. It looks good. Click the back button to get out of print preview mode, and that's it for this section. Review questions. It's now time to complete the review questions. Log on to www.excelceo.com with your email address and password. Click on the Excel 2013 Review Questions, Chapter 5, Section 1 of 2 option, and complete the review questions. All right, let's continue on with the printing lesson over here by talking about headers and footers. At this time, we're going to add a header and footer to the report. In headers and footers, you can make text, dates, numbers, even images appear at the top or bottom, respectively, on each page of the report. So let's go ahead and click on the print preview icon and click on the page setup link this time. And in the page setup dialog box, click on the header/footer tab. And let's work with headers at first. Let's go ahead and click on the custom header box right over there. Now at this point, I want you to click in the center section right over there. And in caps, we're going to type top 10 report. And then click the enter button. Let's turn the caps lock off. And the dates will say as of May 31, 2013. And with your cursor, I want you to select the very top line of the top 10 report text. You can change the font in a header or footer section just like you do on a spreadsheet. So with the top 10 text selected, I want you to click on the Format Text button right over there. It's the very first button over to the left-hand side. And the font dialog box appears. So under the font style, right over here, let's choose bold. What else do we do? Oh, under the size box, let's change that from a size 10 to a size 16. We want it to be really big. And click OK. You know, now that I'm looking at this, I think that size 16 is a little bit too big, so let's go ahead and change that up a little bit. So in the header dialog box, you need to make sure that your top 10 report text is selected, and let's click the Format Text dialog box over there. Instead of 16 under font style, let's use bold italic, and instead of 16, let's just go ahead and use 12 under size, and click OK, and click OK again. All right, that doesn't look too bad. We're going to go ahead and keep that. Now in the page setup dialog box, click on the custom footer. We did the header, but now we're going to do the footer. And let's click in the right section of the report. So on your keyboard, I want you to type the word page and then a space, and then click the page number button, which is this icon right over there. Then type a space and type of, and then we're going to click this pages button right over there, and then another space and type the word pages. So basically it's going to read something like page 1 of 3 pages. And we click OK in that first box and OK in the page setup dialog box. What happened there? On the margins tab of the page setup dialog box, the header and footer margins were set to 0.75 and the top and bottom margins were set to 0.50. One way to rectify this is to reduce the header and footer a bit until they appear above the titles and below the last line of the report there. So let's click on the page setup dialog box, or the link to open the page setup dialog box. We'll click on margins, and we're going to reduce the header and footer margins to 0.25. So let's click down over there, click down over there. The top margin, we're going to make that a little bit closer to the top. So we're going to put that over to 0.75 and click OK. Now you can click on the next and previous page buttons in the page preview mode to see how the report's going to print. So let's do that. We see it, and that looks pretty dang good, doesn't it? Let's go back over to page 1. There's a little bit, something happened right there. So do you see how page 1 is offset just a little bit different from the other pages? That's caused by the vertical setting. Let's go ahead and uncheck that box. So in the page setup dialog box, let's go ahead and click on the page setup dialog box again. In the margins tab, remember when we checked and unchecked the vertically and horizontally boxes? Let's uncheck the vertically box and click OK. Now let's scroll through the report and see how it looks. Oh yeah, that right there's pretty. I like how that one's working now. Now, I encourage you to click on the other buttons in the header and footer dialog boxes just to see what they do. Note that in these dialog boxes, you can insert and format a picture or images. That's kind of cool. That's a new feature that you've got in, I believe that came out in 2010. Now here's a tip. You can also insert a header or footer without even opening the page setup dialog box. To do this, click on the header and footer icon of the text group of the Insert tab. This opens the worksheet in Page Layout view and creates the Header and Footer Tools Design contextual tab. Note that if there are frozen panes in the worksheet, the Page Setup dialog box is going to open. So just a nickel's worth free advice there. All right, let's talk about non-contiguous ranges. Sometimes you want to print sections of a report that are not located next to each other. These are called non-contiguous ranges. There's a few ways to handle this. One way is to hide the rows and or column that you don't want to print. Hiding a row or column is just that, hiding it. It doesn't delete the data. Another way is to select only the range you want to print. So let's go ahead and try both methods. Let's suppose for this exercise that you want to print the report only for the months of March and May. So let's click the back arrow here and click on the Home tab. Now with your cursor, I want you to select only rows 36 through 68. So I'm going to click over here on row 36 with my cursor, scroll down a little bit, stop on row 68. Now on the Home tab, click on the Format button in the Cells group, which is this button right over here. Point to Hide and Unhide, which is right there in the middle, and then choose Hide Rows. Scroll up a bit just so you can see that over here the data ends with March, that skips over April because those are the rows that we just hid, and it starts again with May. So rows 36 through 68 are now hidden. If you click on Print Preview, you'll see that the rows are also hidden in that view of the report. However, that is kind of ugly because page 2 appears with just the column names with no data. Let's go ahead and just look at that just to make sure that's what's happening. So I'm clicking on Print Preview. We see over here page 1 of the report is March. Let's click on the next arrow. Page 2, which should be April, appears with the column names over there, but there's no data in it since those rows are hidden. And clicked on page 3, that's when you see the May data. We really don't want that, so let's go ahead and fix that. Don't want page 2 over there by itself, so I'll click on the back arrow. And we're going to use the undo icon right over there to unhide those rows. You could also go back to the Format button and choose Unhide Rows, but this is an easier way to do it. Now, with your cursor, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go back up to the top of the spreadsheet here, and with your cursor, select cells A2 through K35, which should contain all of the March data. Let's do that. All right, all the way through 35. Release the mouse, scroll down a little bit, and then let's select all of the May data. So hold down your control key, click on cell A69, go all the way over to column K, scroll down until we get the totals, the last line of the report. Release the mouse, release the control button. Now over here in the page layout tab, let's click on the print area button, and we're going to set that print area as the area of the report. And let's click print preview. Now you see the report has only 2 pages. The first page is the March data. The second page is the May data. You can also hide columns. Let's suppose that you don't want to show the data for Lee Underwood. So let's click on the back arrow over here, click on the Home tab, and then let's click all of column I there. Come over here to the Format icon, point to Hide and Unhide, and choose Hide Columns. Now let's click Print Preview to make sure that Lee Underwood doesn't appear. And we look over there and we see that he doesn't appear. Let's click on page 2 just to make sure that it happened that way. Yep, Lee Underwood doesn't appear in the report now. But since we took out an individual, it's not the top 10 report anymore. It's probably the top 9 report. And we don't want that, so let's go ahead and bring Lee back. So I'm going to click on the back button over there, click on the Format, Hide and Unhide. Let's do Unhide Columns. And Lee comes back. Let's talk now about grouping. Another way to hide and unhide rows is to group the data. Grouping is similar to subtotals, which you already learned about in Chapter 4, but grouping does not calculate subtotals. It simply groups the data. Using grouping is a great alternative when you want the user to be able to easily hide and unhide rows and or columns. Let's take a minute to revise the spreadsheet before we do any grouping. So let's go to cell L1. So we're going to go all the way to the top of the spreadsheet. L1, we're going to type the word total. And now let's calculate the daily total sales over here. So I'm going to say equals sum, open parentheses. With your cursor, we're going to select all of the rows in row 3 over there. Close parentheses and enter. Let's copy this all the way down. There, let's scroll up. We don't need those values right there, so I'm going to delete those. And let's go back up to the top there. We need to look at some formatting over here. That one needs to be underlined. This one needs to be bolded. And by the way, I'm using Control U for underline and Control B for bold on my keyboard there. We can delete those 2 rows right there. Come down for April. Let's underline that one and bold that one. Now we come down for May and we do an underline there and a bold there. Now let's come up to the top here and select all of the report now to include column L. We're going to set the print range. Right there, click on the page layout, print area, set print area. Now let's come all the way back up to the top, and with your cursor, I want you to select columns B through K. So I'm going to click on column B, scroll all the way over here to column K, and release the mouse. Now I want you to click on the Data tab, and then click on the group icon in the outline group. When you click on the group icon, you're going to see that the level boxes, just like you saw when you did the subtotals, appear in the upper left-hand corner of the spreadsheet, along with this long line centered over columns B through K, and a high detail button over column L. That's the high detail button right over there. So let's click on the high detail button and see what it does. The columns are now collapsed or hidden and can be easily unhidden or expanded by clicking the Show Detail button. That's the plus sign. You can also click the level boxes 1 and 2 to hide the detail or to show the detail. You can group and ungroup rows of data using the same methodology. So I'm going to click on the Expand Detail button right over here to make sure everything is expanded out. Let's talk about page to fit. Excel also has a page to fit feature that I find extremely useful. Typically, I use this feature when I don't want to mess around with the margins and font sizes, just trying to get the report to print out on just 1 or a few pages. Let's explore that feature a little bit. So let's click on the print preview icon. And now you see that there's 6 pages in this report. That happened when you added the total column to the report. By clicking the Next Page button a few times, you see that pages 4, 5, and 6 contain only one column of data, the total column. We want the report to be contained to 3 pages. So at this point, I want you to take your cursor and come down over here to the very bottom here and click on the scaling icon and click on Fit All Columns on One Page. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Now that the report is formatted correctly, you can print it out and let other people see it. Last thing I want to cover is how to save a file to a PDF file. Sometimes you want to send a file to someone who just wants to print it out. Other times you want to save the Excel report out on the internet. There is a way to save an Excel report to another format where everyone can see it, whether or not they have Excel. It's called a PDF file. PDF stands for Portable Document Format and is a non-proprietary file format, meaning all you need to have is a viewer to read it. The Adobe Corporation has a PDF reader that is downloadable for free and is called the Adobe Acrobat Reader. It's probably the most common reader of PDF files. So to create a PDF file from Excel, all you have to do is save the workbook in a PDF format. Before you create the PDF file, however, you need to make sure that the worksheet is formatted exactly as you would if the report were to be printed out, as that's how it's going to appear in the PDF file. So let's click over here to save as a PDF file. This is the exact way that we want the report to print out. So I'm going to click over here on the Save As file. Let's navigate to Chapter 5, which is under our current folder there. And over here as the Save As Type box, I'm going to click on this box, click on the drop-down menu, and choose the PDF version, which is right there. Make sure that the Open File After Publishing box is checked. And then let's click Save. And after a couple of seconds, the PDF file will appear. So let's close that PDF file. We come over to our spreadsheet again. We're going to click Save. And let's close all of the files that we have open. Conclusion. Printing a report and setting up a report with print properties is probably one of the easiest things to do in Excel. And it's something that you should get brownie points or big time black marks if it's not done properly. It is always good practice to set a print range and make the report look presentable before you send the file to anybody, particularly to inexperienced Excel users. Lots of management people like to open a file and then just automatically click print. You could look really bad if they print a report and they saw that the print properties were not formatted correctly and they have to go in and do it. It is such an easy thing to do, so why not just go ahead and format all of your reports before you send them out? If you don't do it, it could result in others having less confidence in your abilities. Trust me, been there, done that, got the battle scars to prove it. So in this chapter, you learned how to use the print dialog box. You use the print preview icons numerous times. You set up a report to print on one page and another report to print on multiple pages. You worked with page breaks to begin a new report at certain places in the spreadsheet. You worked with margins, inserted headers and footers, and printed non-contiguous ranges. You learned how to hide rows and data without deleting the data. You worked an exercise where you group and ungroup columns of data. You also used the page to fit feature, which allows you to automatically fit the text of a spreadsheet within certain page parameters without having to adjust the margins. Finally, you save your report as a PDF file. Review questions. It's now time to complete the review questions. Log on to www.excelceo.com with your email address and password. Click on the Excel 2013 Review Questions, Chapter 5, Section 2 of 2 option, and complete the review questions. After you complete the review questions, you can take the chapter exam. To take the examination for this chapter, you must have successfully completed the examination for the previous chapter and the review questions for Chapter 5. After you do all that, you can go to ExcelCEO.com, click on Sign In, log in, and take the exam. Make sure that you take the exam on the same computer on which you completed the sample files, as some of the questions on the exam may refer to some of the completed examples.